Welcome to the Block and Tackle Show, hosted by Karl Block. Karl is a partner in the law firm of Loeb & Loeb here in Los Angeles, California. He will be tackling some of the biggest issues in business today. Listen, learn, and enjoy as he leaves no stone unturned during deep conversations with some of today's most amazing business leaders. Welcome to the show.
So now I just want to touch on the pandemic a little bit because, again, you have to do sort of a rapid reaction response to a situation where everything's closed, people aren't working, people aren't necessarily getting money right away. How were you able to take what you were doing and adapt to the increasing needs because of the pandemic? What was it like to have to say, we got to do more, we got to figure this out, we got to get, more food out, we need more help. How did you do it?
Well, the food bank plays a role during any type of disaster, and also working with other organizations depending on what that disaster is. So for us, this was an unusual disaster, right? Something those of us had not experienced, but that was the approach, right? And with when disasters occur, demand for food assistance go up, needs increase. So that was kind of the approach. The worry initially was, again, not knowing. None of us knew much about COVID-19 and how contagious it was, and that, of course, there was no vaccine for the first year. So, doing everything we could to protect our people, our staff, our volunteers. We were deemed an essential service, which is very important by the state of California and the county of Los Angeles, because again, a lot of businesses were, closing, or people were working from home, or whatever the case may be. So we could go about our business and make sure we could do the work that was required. And so for us, it really was sort of disaster response, which we've done before and have some experience with.
On a pretty big scale, right? How much more did you have to ramp up as a result of the pandemic? And I think you mentioned that you had to, go to the Hollywood Bowl, or you had to go to large places to help this out. And how much more food were you getting, and were you distributing, and what kinds of things did you have to deal with?
Yeah, well, it was more than double in a matter of weeks. The demand was kind of through the roof. Sort of overnight, we did a mobile drive-thru distribution at the Forum early on in the pandemic, and we had more than 7,500 cars come through in a 4-hour period. And that was very much eye-opening for us in terms of this is unlike anything that we've experienced before with any other past events and sort of past disaster. So yes, scaling up as much as possible. While grocery stores were getting knocked out and shelves were bare, on the food service side, restaurants and the like, there was a huge glut of food that we could tap into, and where U.S. Department of Agriculture played an important role of ensuring our food bank and others were able to tap into that. So definitely hair on fire time, Karl, in terms of just this coming out of nowhere and, need increasing, just really overnight, and, dealing, trying to figure out how to be safe on the whole public health side of things. I am so, proud of how our team was able to respond and just scale up very quickly. The other thing I want to mention is we do purchase some of our food. We rely heavily on donated food. That's 90% plus of what comes in and out. But we do purchase some food to sort of fill the gaps of what we're not seeing in donations. So that was also important, to have additional funds come in for the operation itself, but also to help pay for some food purchases. The County of Los Angeles stepped up and provided funding that was very helpful in that manner. And so, it's really for us, food, financial support, volunteers, other in-kind support to be able to do all this work.
Okay. So now I think before we get to some of the programs and the role of volunteers and the advocacy. I want to get into some fun but very important facts. So first, how many pounds of food do you distribute a year, and how many meals does that equate to?
So the food bank is right now distributing about 10 million pounds a month of food. So that'll be about 120 million pounds this year. And again, what does a pound mean? When using a USDA measure, that's, right around 100 million, a little less than 100 million meals going out to the community. So, huge volume. The value of all that food, just to give you another measure, is in excess of $200 million worth of food kind of coming in and out on an annual basis. So it's big volume. I mean, we're talking about, tractor truckloads of food coming in. Probably today the loads coming in are 12 or 13, right, of the big trucks, and then of course smaller vehicles, the refrigerated bobtails picking up and bringing in other food. So this is a busy operation with huge volume coming in and of course going out throughout Los Angeles County.
So, again, the history of the food bank, you have a guy who's picking up food in Pasadena from people that are willing to give food, to Doris, your predecessor, having frankly extraordinary. Even what they did is larger than most food banks in the United States, 32 million pounds. And now you're up to about 120 million pounds now. And so you've grown 400% in terms of the food you're getting, the food you're distributing from just 2000 on your watch. The growth is 400%. Now, sometimes, of course, people who are watching, who are interested in hunger or who are interested in donating, they like to know how much for every dollar that they give, what percentage of it actually goes, or how much of it goes to food and being distributed, and how much goes to administrative stuff. So why don't you just quickly share that?
Sure. Yeah. So, I mean, our food bank measures up, and others around the country measure up very, very well in this regard. 96% of what comes in is going out in terms of what we call, as far as program services. That includes the acquisition and distribution of this food. Like any nonprofit, absolutely need to invest in fundraising, and need to invest in computer systems and accounting and HR and those types of things. We have about 225 employees now, ranging from our truck drivers, warehouse workers, and everyone, program staff, agency relations staff, food sourcing, and the like. And so the efficiencies definitely, we've continued. Part of the reason I think we see it's very important to deliver as much back to the communities of Los Angeles County as possible is that just that overall need. Right, as we were talking about earlier, you've got 30% of LA County households dealing with food insecurity. So, we continue to have our work cut out for us. And so we're very much focused on, how can we leverage resources as effectively as possible to deliver as much out to the communities of Los Angeles County as much as possible.
So I think you were very modest, by the way. And I would just say, taking stock of this, to go from where you were to having 300,000 square feet of operation, 200 employees, a fleet of trucks, all these partner agencies, being innovative enough to have emergency drive-through situations or outings at the Forum or otherwise during a pandemic. It's actually very special. And to know that the donations are not just going to pay administrative salaries and stuff, but to plant and equipment, to food acquisition, to doing these things. I mean, the acquisition of this other facility wasn't a vanity project. It wasn't to increase the balance sheet of the food bank. It's because you had the need. You needed to have more capacity to distribute more food, right?
Yeah, I mean, we view the facility here at Industry and the South LA facility, which remains also an important part of the operation. These are vehicles, right, for us to be able to, serve. And what the Industry facility has done, but beyond just the overall scale of it and how large it is this huge increase in refrigeration space, both refrigerated and frozen space. So that allows us to not run up against sort of the capacity challenges of, oh, gee, we're being offered multiple truckloads, but we don't have space for all those truckloads of apples or whatever the item might be. So that's a really kind of nice thing to have. And the other thing I'll say is that, it absolutely takes, I understand someone in my role and from a leadership standpoint, and as important is the overall team, right? And we have so much going on at the food bank. We're talking about food sourcing and fundraising. We talk about the volunteer program, agencies, programs, and the like. So it's the food bank team and the response to the pandemic. So it's the food bank team, operations, logistics across the board that are able to make this happen. And we have a lot of folks here, Karl, who've been with us for 20 years plus, similar to myself, have also sort of grown with the food bank during this time. And I think we've benefited a great deal from that and having that really great knowledge. And of course, we're hiring. We have new people joining us with all the time too. But, having a real core leadership team that is seasoned, is experienced, has definitely benefited us significantly.
Okay, and that makes sense. Now, in this new facility, you've got so much storage space. What is it? How much food can you literally store in the Industry facility?
It's about I believe 5 million pounds. Again, it depends on what type of product, how
Sure.
sort of light it is and the like. But I mean, it's the warehouse. It's interesting. It's an older building. It was built in 1969. So we had to, again, do a fundraising campaign to pay for a lot of the improvements,
Mhm.
not just putting in refrigeration, but, it needed new sprinklers and lighting and roof. And, it just needed a real major overhaul. The last portion that's happening right now is solar, which will be very helpful for us in terms of sort of reducing overall utility costs. So, and the goal of this facility at any given time is really for it to only be half full.
Mhm.
Because, if you're full, then you don't have any surge capacity for when the pandemic, earthquake, or other situation happens. Plenty of space here to be able to deal with day-to-day needs and also put us in a position to be able to respond to any future situations where there would be a surge in demand for food assistance.
Okay. So let's talk about the role of volunteers. What do people who are interested in volunteering, what is it like for them? What do they do? How do they help you?
Yeah, so we have a lot of volunteers. Last year, we had about 21,000 volunteers help the food bank. This year, that number is running a little bit higher than that. Most of the volunteers will come on site here at Industry or at our South LA facility and physically handle food, make up food boxes for our senior program, our kids programs, sort produce. A lot of this food needs to be handled once it comes in. Not all of it, but a good portion of it needs to be handled and in some instances inspected before it goes out for distribution. So that's the typical assignment. And in addition to that, we have a lot of volunteers helping us at these mobile distributions I mentioned. We're on a lot of community college campuses because of how much student hunger has increased. We're at a lot of health clinics and other locations doing mobile distributions throughout the month. And then we also refer volunteers to our partner agencies, because this volunteer count I'm mentioning, that doesn't include, the tens of thousands of volunteers who help across these 600 agencies throughout Los Angeles County. So we refer, LA County is such a big county, we'll refer volunteers to someone close to them where they can provide help without driving a long distance. So, and of course, the board, like any nonprofit organization, we have a board of directors. They're volunteers helping set the overall direction, strategic planning, helping raise funds, governance, and all the important duties that a board plays.
Okay, and I see how critical that would be, even though you have 200 employees, how much more arms and legs you're going to need to actually help with the processing and distribution. So it really is, it's for them, it's actually not a vanity project. You're putting them to work, and they're actually helping you with the supply chain of the delivery of food.
Exactly. And, we have a lot of high schools come in, colleges, companies, firms, social, civic, religious organizations. I mean, it runs the gamut of all the different types of organizations come in. We have a lot of individuals. We have people come celebrate their birthday at the food bank, have a little work party, which is kind of fun.
Nice.
So, and Karl, a lot of information is on the website at lafoodbank.org for people interested in volunteering. They can go there and see the volunteer shifts that are available and sign up right there. They don't have to call anyone, talk to anyone. So again, as much as we can, leveraging technology to make it easy, right, for people to either volunteer or to find food. If you're curious where to get help throughout Los Angeles County, you go to the Find Food tab and can search by zip code and see who our partner agencies are throughout Los Angeles County.
Okay. Why don't you tell our viewers and listeners about your children's programs?
Yeah, so, through the years, in addition to the food distributed to partner agencies, we've developed different programs to help. I would say the three groupings are children, seniors, and then families. The children's programs we've developed through the years include the backpack program, an after-school supper program, summer breakfast and lunch program. Those are the three primary programs that we've developed through the years. The backpack program is providing food to kids over the course of a weekend. So we're working with specific schools to help identify those families that are, again, just struggling to meet all of their food needs. So we're working with a good number of LAUSD schools, but other schools and other school districts, primarily elementary schools. Again, the sort of the overall development, brain development, and other development is critical throughout childhood, but especially at that elementary school level, very important in that regard. And so the backpack program has been a very important program for us over these last, probably 15, 18 years, something like that. After school meals. So and for those programs, we're working with youth programs similar to, often they're Boys and Girls Clubs and other similar organizations where kids are going to after school for tutoring and recreation and other things. And, a lot of those kids are hungry. They had school lunch, but, now we're getting into the afternoon, late afternoon. So that's what that program looks like. And then during the summer, when kids are out of school, running sort of summer lunch and summer breakfast. We're at a lot of city parks and other partners to be able to run that particular program. So all of these programs I'm mentioning, and the work of the food bank itself is one of partnership, right? In terms of we're working with other organizations and talking about backpack at schools and the like, and all of those partnerships are critical for us to be able to reach children or whether it be seniors or families or whatever the type of program it may be.
Okay. And what are your programs for seniors?
For seniors, we're focusing on those who are still cooking or having someone cook in the home for them. So there's some great Meals on Wheels programs here throughout the Los Angeles area. So we're not duplicating that work. They're doing a good job of providing meals to seniors who may need it. So we're providing, again, groceries, produce, perishables, shelf-stable items for seniors to use over the course of a month. These are typically monthly distributions that help supplement seniors' diets. So that program also has been around for, coming up on about 20 years, and is very helpful in getting those resources out to seniors. One thing that was interesting, we were talking about the pandemic earlier, Karl, is we had a request when the pandemic hit, because as you might recall, public health directives were such that they're telling seniors, don't go outside unless you absolutely need to, right? So we started doing some home delivery to seniors, something we never even thought of, or I wouldn't say thought of, but didn't really consider that much prior to the pandemic. So both the food bank itself and working with other organizations, companies, I should say, providing donated home delivery, that also was a way to, reach a lot of seniors who needed that help and needed that assistance.
I think obviously, like the other programs, that's great. And the idea that you all would say, okay, if we need to do something different or an addition, we will. We've got to do what we got to do. We're not, there's this theme here that you adjust to the circumstances that you have and you meet the challenges. So, okay, so less known than your food distribution is some of the advocacy programs that you participate in, and also how they advance the mission of trying to reduce hunger. So why don't you talk a little bit about each of those programs?
Sure. So, the decisions made in Washington, D.C. and Sacramento and here locally, they have a big impact, right, in terms of the overall need and also our ability to access food. So we have a very small kind of advocacy team, and at times I'll also travel to DC and Sacramento, sometimes testify to a committee or talk to elected officials about various priorities that would help overall increase food access and help people who are struggling with food insecurity and hunger. So this is an important aspect of the work. I mentioned USDA earlier, U.S. Department of Agriculture. They, of course, play a big role in the food world in the United States. So sometimes it's talking to people who are, elected to, let's say, Congress in D.C. or the Senate. Sometimes it's talking to those who are the administrators, right, and at USDA and the executive branch, and similar to in Sacramento, and also here with the County of Los Angeles and other local governments here. So that's an important part of the work, and can lead to one thing we advocated for that the governor just signed recently is simplifying the code dates on food items, because this has been really confusing, right? There's been best if used by date, and there's, manufacturers can use 3, 4, or 5 different dates on items, which often leads to people looking at it and saying, oh, I'm going to have to throw this away. This is no good anymore, which is not the case. It's not what that date means. So the governor just signed a simplifying this for the consumer, right, to make sure it's clear, what does this date mean and what does that mean with regards to consuming things. So again, for us, food waste is a big part of things. There's hunger, food insecurity, there's food waste overall. These were sort of the bedrocks that got our food bank going 51 years ago. And so focusing on all those items are important on the advocacy side.
Okay. And do you also, why don't you talk about CalFresh?
Yeah, so CalFresh is the name for the traditional food stamp program here in California. Nationally, that program now is called SNAP, Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. So here in California, it's called CalFresh. So we've had a CalFresh outreach team for many years to help identify people who are at let's say, food pantry is a very often a good example of that, who are in line, need help, and may not realize that they're eligible for the CalFresh program. It's an income means tested program. A lot of people may not qualify for the program, but a lot of people do. So making people aware of that program and helping them at times through the application process, which can be pretty burdensome for some, is a way to link people to benefits that, again, as taxpayers, we've all paid into, right? So these programs are here for, like the unemployment system and other things. They're here for when we're going through a tough time, when we need that, when we need that help. So that, again, a smaller program for us, small outreach team, but they're making a really I think a positive impact on people. So for those who are not familiar with the CalFresh program, basically it gives you a certain amount of benefits on a monthly basis on an EBT card, electronic benefit card, which then you take to a grocery store and you choose the items that you want. So that's also very important in a place like Los Angeles, where we have huge diversity, right? And people have, in some instances, very specific cultural food needs and preferences. So that's also really beneficial for people to be able to select the food items that they and their families want.
Okay. Now, is there a research component to the food bank?
We do some research. It's connected with that policy team, so it's very small, but definitely mighty. So we do surveys for our agency partners. We're just finishing a survey for the recipients, the clients, which we do every few years. So we do sort of primary research for a lot of our work, which helps inform us in terms of making future decisions as far as resources and what should occur. And then we'll work with other organizations. I mentioned USC earlier. We've worked with UCLA in the past, County of Los Angeles, others who are doing their own research that will comment on or provide our kind of input or expertise or advise them on. So yes, and that's helpful for us, again, to just, as we're kind of every 3 to 4 years going through that strategic planning process and determining, the core work continues, but what are some new areas that we need to look at and consider?
I think you said if you want to volunteer, you can go to the food bank website and schedule volunteering. If you want to donate, what is the best way to donate to the food bank?
Yeah, I mean, the lafoodbank.org is definitely the best place to go. There's a great stories section that's very popular because you're able to see stories of people who receive help, food assistance, the agency partners, some of these, again, fundraising campaigns that we're doing. We have a big one that's part of the legal community, Food from the Bar, that I know you and your firm have been involved with for many years. So a lot of good information there. Yeah, how to donate, how to volunteer, where to find food, the programs. We touched on sort of nutrition programs, also a very important part of the overall work. So a lot of good information at lafoodbank.org.
If you have any questions, you can reach me at Karl@blockandtackleshow.com. The and is A-N-D. It's not an ampersand. Karl@blockandtackleshow.com. If I need to forward them to Michael, I will. And we obviously look forward to your comments and questions. But Michael, thank you for coming on the Block and Tackle Show.
Yeah, well, thank you, Karl. I appreciate being on.
Thanks for tuning in. If you want more info on the show, please visit blockandtackleshow.com. And you can also email me at karl@blockandtackleshow.com. Thanks for tuning in.